refused to let my mother's affair son live with me for school, but now the family is in chaos because he revealed every hidden betrayal they thought was buried, and their lies burned them alive. Okay, so deep breaths. This is a lot. I don't even know where to begin. Maybe if I just start typing, it'll all come pouring out. I feel like I'm drowning in this mess, like I'm caught in a riptide, pulled under by waves of shock and confusion. I keep seeing my family's faces, frozen in that moment, the moment the truth shattered everything. I'm Marcella, from Valencia. We lived in this picturesque little neighborhood, El Carmen, to be exact. All cobblestone streets and wrought iron balconies overflowing with geraniums, their scarlet petals a stark contrast to the pale, crumbling walls. The air, usually thick with the scent of orange blossoms and sea salt, now feels heavy, suffocating. My family. God, my family. From the outside, we look perfect. Picture this. Sunday lunches at Abuela's, the courtyard bathed in the warm Valencian sun, the scent of paella, rich and saffron-infused, hanging in the air. Everyone laughing, passing dishes of arroz negro and flan around, kids running around the fountain, their shrieks of laughter echoing off the ancient stones. We were that family. The one everyone envied, the solid, unshakable unit. Ha! The irony makes my stomach churn. If they only knew. If they only knew the carefully constructed lies that held that picture together. My mother, Julia, always played the role of the matriarch perfectly. Elegant, graceful, always with a kind word and a warm embrace. Her hands, adorned with delicate silver rings, would flutter around the table, ensuring everyone had enough. Her smile, practiced and dazzling, never faltered. My siblings and I, we were her little ducklings, trailing after her everywhere, basking in the reflected glow of her perceived perfection. There's Lucia, my older sister, always the responsible one, the doctor. She'd sit across from me, her brow furrowed in concentration as she dissected the latest medical journal, occasionally offering a dry, witty remark that would make Abuela chuckle. Then there's Miguel, the youngest, the charmer, the artist. He'd be sprawled on a low stool, sketching furiously in his notebook, his dark curls falling across his forehead, a mischievous glint in his eyes. And me, stuck in the middle, trying to keep the peace, smoothing over any ruffled feathers, mediating the inevitable squabbles. Always. It's exhausting, you know? Even now, just thinking about it, I feel this tightness in my chest, like I can't breathe. My hands are clammy, and my heart is hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. We weren't unhappy, not exactly. It was more complicated. There was always this underlying tension, a sense of obligation, I guess. Like we owed it to our mother to maintain this facade of perfection, this image of idyllic family life. We were all complicit, in a way. We all played our parts. We never really talked about feelings, not real feelings. It was always surface-level stuff. How's work, Lucia? How's school, Miguel? Never anything deeper. Never any probing questions about hopes, dreams, fears. It was as if we were all afraid of what we might uncover if we scratched beneath the surface. And beneath it all, humming like a low, dissonant chord, there were these whispers, these rumors about my mother's past. Little things people said, hints they dropped, veiled allusions to a wild youth and indiscretions. Nothing concrete, just whispers in hushed tones, sideways glances, knowing smiles, enough to make you wonder, enough to make you feel like something wasn't quite right, like there was a secret hiding just beneath the surface, waiting to explode. And, boy, did it explode. It detonated like a bomb in the middle of our perfect little world, leaving nothing but rubble and ash in its wake. It was during one of those seemingly idyllic Sunday lunches, the sun dappling the courtyard, the scent of paella thick in the air, that the first cracks appeared. Lucia had just returned from a grueling shift at the hospital. Miguel was excitedly describing a new art project, and Mama, ever the gracious hostess, was refilling our glasses with Rioja. It was then, in the midst of the laughter and chatter, that the phone rang. Mama excused herself, her smile faltering for just a second, a flicker of knees in her eyes. She returned a few minutes later, her face pale, her composure gone. The laughter died down, the air suddenly thick with anticipation. That phone call, it was the catalyst. It was the beginning of the end. It wasn't just that one phone call, though. It was a culmination of years of incidents. Little things, really. Tiny cracks in the facade that, in retrospect, should have warned me that the foundation was crumbling. Mama always had this uncanny ability to delegate, to make her problems our problems, especially mine. Lucia was too busy saving lives, Miguel too wrapped up in his art, and Abuela, well, Abuela was Abuela, fragile and fiercely protective of Mama. So, it fell to me. I was the fixer, the smoother over, the keeper of secrets. Like that time, Tio Ricardo gambled away his business. Mama was frantic, pacing the length of the living room, wringing her hands, muttering about the disgrace, the shame it would bring on the family. Marcela, mi amor, she'd pleaded, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. You must talk to him. He listens to you. You can make him see sense. And so I did. I spent hours with Tio Ricardo, listening to his justifications, his excuses, his promises to change. I helped him create a budget, connected him with a financial advisor, even dipped into my own meager savings to help him get back on his feet. Mama never thanked me, not really. It was just expected, like it was my duty, my responsibility to clean up the messes of others. Or the time Lucia broke off her engagement with that pompous lawyer, Javier. Mama was devastated, not because Lucia was unhappy, but because it didn't look good. What will people say? She'd wailed, pacing back and forth, clutching a rosary. A broken engagement! It's scandalous! It was me who had to console Lucia, reassure her that she'd made the right decision, while simultaneously trying to manage Mama's histrionics and smooth things over with the gossiping tias. I remember feeling this hollow ache in my chest, this resentment that bubbled up inside me. Why was it always my job to fix things? Why was I always expected to sacrifice my own feelings for the sake of appearances? The whispers about Mama's past, they weren't just whispers. They were echoes of truths I'd tried to ignore, tried to bury deep down. There were hushed conversations I'd overheard, snippets of gossip I'd pretended not to hear. Stories about a young Julia, vibrant and rebellious, defying convention, breaking hearts. There was talk of a passionate affair with a flamenco guitarist, a whirlwind romance that ended abruptly, leaving a trail of broken promises and whispered regrets. And then there were the letters. I'd stumbled upon them once, tucked away in a dusty box in the attic. Love letters, passionate and desperate, from a man who wasn't my father. I'd read them with a knot of dread twisting in my stomach, my heart pounding in my chest. I'd quickly put them back, pretending I hadn't seen them, burying the knowledge deep down, where it festered and grew, poisoning everything. I remember confronting Mama once, tentatively, hesitantly. We were sitting in the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. I asked her about the rumors, about the letters. She just smiled, a sad, wistful smile, and said, "The past is the past, Marcella. It's best left buried." She reached out and took my hand, her touch cool and smooth. Some things are better left unsaid. But the unspoken things, they hang in the air, thick and heavy, suffocating you. They fester and grow, poisoning everything. And now, those unspoken things, those buried secrets, were about to explode. The Rioja sloshed in my glass, the ruby liquid mirroring the rising tide of unease in my stomach. Mama hadn't touched her paella. She just sat there, pale and silent, picking at the saffron rice with her fork. Finally, she looked up, her eyes meeting mine, a strange mix of desperation and defiance in their depths. "Marcella," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to ask you something important." My heart sank. I knew, instinctively, that whatever she was about to say would change everything. "There's a boy," she continued, her voice catching in her throat. "My son." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I stared at her, my mind struggling to process the information. A son? Another son? What was she talking about? Lucia and Miguel exchanged confused glances, their laughter dying in their throats. The courtyard, once filled with the warmth of the Valencian sun, suddenly felt cold, shadowed. "His name is Daniel," Mama went on, her voice trembling now. He's coming to Valencia for university." She paused, her eyes darting nervously between us. "He needs a place to stay." There it was. The request, veiled in a thin layer of maternal concern. The demand, cloaked in the language of family obligation. My stomach churned. I knew, without a doubt, what she was going to ask. "And you want him to stay with me?" I stated flatly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Mama's eyes flickered down to her plate. "Just for a year, am I, amor?" she pleaded, her voice laced with a familiar desperation. "Just until he gets settled. A year. A year of my life, my space, my peace, consumed by this stranger. This secret son, a son she'd kept hidden for years, a son we'd never known existed." The anger, a hot, burning coal in my chest, began to rise. "Mama," I said, my voice tight with barely suppressed fury, "you can't just spring this on me. A son? Where has he been all these years? Why now?" The questions tumbled out, fueled by years of unspoken resentments, years of being the family's emotional dumping ground. "It's complicated," Mama murmured, her gaze still fixed on her plate. "His father, he wasn't around." She looked up at me then, her eyes pleading. "Please, Marcella, don't make this difficult. It's important to me." Important to her. Of course, it was important to her. It was always important to her. What about what was important to me? What about my life, my feelings, my needs? They never seemed to matter. "Difficult?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're asking me to take in a complete stranger, a brother I never knew existed, and you're saying I'm making it difficult? This is insane!" The carefully constructed facade of family harmony began to crumble, the cracks widening, threatening to swallow us whole. "Marcella, please," Mama whispered, her voice trembling. "He's family. That word, once a source of comfort and belonging, now felt like a weapon, wielded with precision to manipulate and control. I looked at Lucia and Miguel, their faces a mixture of confusion and concern. They hadn't said a word, silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. I could feel their eyes on me, the weight of their expectations pressing down, suffocating me. "No," I said, my voice firm, the anger hardening into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. "Absolutely no. I won't do it." Mama's face crumpled, the carefully applied mask of composure cracking, revealing the raw pain beneath. "You're being heartless," she hissed, her voice laced with venom. "Uncaring. He's your brother." "My brother?" I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "A brother I've never met? A brother you've kept hidden for years? Don't you dare try to guilt me into this, Mama. I'm done being your fixer. I'm done cleaning up your messes." I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the stone floor, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. I stood up, my hands trembling, my heart pounding in my chest. "I won't do it," I repeated, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and exhaustion. "I'm not doing it." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving the shattered remnants of our perfect family behind me. The blood was roaring in my ears, drowning out the frantic whispers of my siblings. My chest ached, a tight, constricting band around my ribs. "No," I repeated, my voice shaking. "Absolutely not." I couldn't breathe. The courtyard, bathed in the warm Valencian sun, suddenly felt like a prison. The scent of paella, once comforting, now churned my stomach. "Marcella, please," Mama's voice cracked, Just listen. But I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear her justifications, her excuses, her carefully crafted explanations for why I should be the one to bear this burden. Years of repressed resentment, of being the family's emotional shock absorber, surged through me, a tidal wave of anger and hurt. Listen to what, Mama? I asked, my voice thick with sarcasm. Listen to how it's my responsibility to fix this, how it's my duty to take in this stranger? This secret you've kept hidden for all these years? My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms. He's not a stranger, Mama insisted, her voice rising. He's your brother. Your blood. The word blood hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as if shared DNA somehow erased years of absence, years of secrets and lies. Blood? I scoffed. You think blood makes a family? It's not about blood, Mama. It's about connection, about love, about shared experiences, things we don't have with this. Daniel. My voice cracked on his name, a name that felt foreign and unwelcome on my tongue. You don't even know him, Mama pleaded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Give him a chance. He's a good boy. A good boy? I repeated, the anger bubbling up inside me, threatening to spill over. And what if he's not? What if he's a nightmare? What if he turns my life upside down? Did you even think about that, Mama? Or were you too busy thinking about how this would make you look? Too busy worrying about what the neighbors would say? The words tumbled out, raw and uncontrolled, fueled by years of unspoken resentments. Lucia and Miguel finally spoke, their voices hesitant, tentative. Marcella, Lucia began, her brow furrowed with concern. Maybe you're overreacting. He's family. Family, that word again. Family? I snapped, rounding on my sister. Where was this family when I was spending hours on the phone with Tio Ricardo, trying to prevent him from bankrupting us all? Where was this family when I was consoling you after you broke off your engagement, while simultaneously trying to manage Mama's meltdown? My voice cracked, the years of suppressed frustration pouring out. Miguel reached out a hand, his touch tentative. Marcella, calm down, he murmured. We're just trying to help. Help? I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. By piling another one of Mama's messes onto my shoulders? That's not help, Miguel. That's enabling. I turned back to Mama, my gaze unwavering. No, I said, my voice firm, the anger now a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I won't do it. I refuse. Mama's face crumpled, the carefully constructed mask of composure finally shattering, revealing the raw pain beneath. You're being selfish, she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and anger. Think of Daniel. He has nowhere else to go. And whose fault is that, Mama? I asked, my voice low and steady. Did you even ask him if he wanted to stay with me? Or did you just assume I would say yes, like I always do? The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. The scent of paella, now cold and congealed in the dishes, filled the air, a stark reminder of the shattered illusion of family harmony. I could feel Lucia and Miguel's eyes on me, a mixture of disapproval and pity in their gazes. But I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first. I was refusing to be the family's emotional dumping ground. I was drawing a line in the sand. I'm not doing this, Mama, I repeated, my voice shaking with a mixture of exhaustion and a strange sense of liberation. I'm done. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving the wreckage of our perfect Sunday lunch behind me. The wrought iron gate clanged shut behind me, the sound echoing in the sudden silence of the courtyard, a final punctuation mark on the end of an era. I walked down the cobblestone streets of El Carmen, the warm Valencian sun beating down on my back, the scent of orange blossoms and sea salt filling my lungs. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope, a fragile sense of freedom. I had finally said no. The days that followed were a blur of hushed phone calls, tense silences, and pointed glares. Lucia and Miguel, bless their hearts, tried to reason with me. Marcella, just think about it, Lucia pleaded, her voice strained. He's family. You can't just turn your back on him. Easy for her to say. She was barely home, always at the hospital, saving lives. This wouldn't disrupt her perfect little routine. Miguel took a different approach, appealing to my sense of, well, me. "He's probably terrified, Marcella," he said softly, his dark eyes full of concern. "Imagine being thrust into a new city, a new country, not knowing anyone. He needs us." And there it was, the guilt trip. The classic Miguel maneuver. He knew I was a sucker for a sob story. "He has Mama," I retorted, my voice sharper than I intended. "She's the one who should be taking care of him." I paced my tiny apartment, the sea. Oh, I'm fine, suddenly feeling claustrophobic. The scent of stale coffee and anxiety hung heavy in the air. "You know, Mama," Miguel sighed, running a hand through his dark curls. She's not equipped to handle this." "Not equipped? What did that even mean?" "She'd managed to raise 3 of us, hadn't she? Or had she? Had we, in fact, raised ourselves? While she played the role of the perfect matriarch." The thought stung, a sharp, unwelcome prick of doubt. Then I finally met him, Daniel. Mama brought him to my apartment, unannounced, of course. He stood awkwardly in my doorway, clutching a worn duffel bag, his eyes wide and uncertain. He was younger than I'd imagined, barely out of his teens, with Mama's dark hair and startlingly blue eyes that weren't Mama's at all. He mumbled a shy hello, his gaze darting around my cluttered living room, taking in the overflowing bookshelves, the mismatched furniture, the chipped mugs stacked precariously on the kitchen counter. He looked lost. He was quiet, almost painfully so. He answered my questions in monosyllables, his gaze fixed on his hands. He seemed grateful, I guess. Grateful for the lukewarm coffee I offered. Grateful for the awkward small talk I attempted. He didn't seem like a bad kid, just lost. And that, more than anything, made me angry. Angry at Mama for putting him in this position. Angry at myself for feeling something, a flicker of sympathy, a pang of guilt. The pressure from my siblings continued, relentless, suffocating. They called, they texted, they even staged an intervention at Abuela's house, complete with tears, pleas, and thinly veiled accusations of selfishness. I held firm, clinging to my anger like a life raft in a stormy sea. "No," I repeated, my voice shaking with a mixture of exhaustion and defiance. "I'm not doing this." Then came the family dinner. It was supposed to be a peace offering, a chance to quote, "clear the air," as Lucia put it. We gathered at Abuela's, the familiar courtyard now shadowed, the air heavy with unspoken tension. The paella, once a symbol of family unity, now sat untouched on the table, a cold, congealed reminder of the cracks in our foundation. Mama flitted nervously around, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but her smile was strained, her eyes shadowed. Daniel sat silently beside her, picking at his food, his gaze fixed on his plate. The conversation was stilted, forced, punctuated by uncomfortable silences. And then it happened. The bomb detonated. Daniel, his face pale, his voice trembling, pushed his plate away. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The words hung in the air, heavy and charged. We all stared at him, a mixture of confusion and apprehension in our eyes. He looked up, his blue eyes blazing with a sudden, unexpected fire. "I'm tired of being a secret," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "I'm tired of being hidden." He reached into his bag and pulled out a thick stack of letters, tied together with a faded ribbon. He tossed them onto the table, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. "These," he said, his voice shaking with a mixture of anger and pain, "are from my father, one of them, anyway." He then pulled out a small, tarnished silver locket. He opened it, revealing a faded photograph of a young woman with laughing eyes and a cascade of dark curls. A woman who looked strikingly like me. "This," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "is my mother, or rather, one of them." He looked directly at Mama, his eyes blazing with accusation. "You lied," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "You lied to all of us." He then proceeded to unveil a Pandora's box of secrets, a history of affairs, hidden children, and carefully constructed lies. Letters, photographs, birth certificates. Evidence of a life we'd never known existed. A life that shattered the carefully constructed image of our perfect family. The silence that followed was deafening. We sat there, stunned, the remnants of our paella growing cold on the table, the scent of saffron and betrayal thick in the air. The carefully constructed facade of our perfect family had crumbled, leaving nothing but rubble and ash in its wake. And in the midst of the chaos, a single terrifying question echoed in my mind. What had I done? The silence. God, the silence. It was thick, heavy, suffocating. Like the air had been sucked out of the courtyard. Leia. Ving a vacuum of shock and disbelief. I looked at my siblings, their faces frozen masks of what? Horror? Disgust? Lucia, the ever-stoic doctor, her mouth agape, her eyes wide and unseeing. Miguel, the artist, the charmer, his usual mischievous glint replaced with a dull, hollow stare. Abuela, frail and bewildered, clutching her rosary, her lips moving in silent prayer. And Mama. Mama just sat there, her face ashen, her eyes fixed on the scattered letters and photographs, the remnants of her carefully constructed lies. My own heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. My hands were clammy, my breath shallow. I felt numb, detached. Like I was watching this scene unfold from a distance, a spectator in my own family's implosion. The paella, the rioja, the warm Valencian sun, all the familiar comforts of our Sunday lunches, now felt alien, grotesque. The courtyard, once a haven of laughter and family togetherness, now felt like a battlefield, strewn with the casualties of truth. The whispers, the rumors, the things I'd tried so hard to ignore, to bury deep down, they were all true, worse than true. Daniel, the secret son, was just the tip of the iceberg. There were others, other children, other affairs, other lies. A whole hidden life, meticulously concealed beneath the veneer of respectability. A life that had now exploded, shattering the carefully constructed illusion of our perfect family. And me, where did I fit into this wreckage? Had I, in my own way, contributed to this catastrophe? Had my refusal to take in Daniel been the catalyst? The final straw that broke the camel's back? The thought twisted in my gut, a sharp, agonizing stab of guilt. Had I been so blinded by my own anger, my own resentment, that I hadn't seen the bigger picture? Had I been so focused on protecting myself from being used that I'd inadvertently pushed Daniel to this desperate act of revelation? But then another feeling, a strange, unsettling sense of relief, began to surface. A relief that the truth was finally out, that the secrets were no longer festering in the shadows. A relief that the charade was over. The pressure in my chest eased slightly, the tight band around my ribs loosening its grip. We were a mess, yes, a broken, fractured mess. But maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real. Something honest, something better. I looked at Mama, her face etched with a mixture of shame and defiance. I felt, I don't know, pity, anger, something in between. A complicated cocktail of emotions that I couldn't quite decipher. I wanted to scream, to rage, to demand answers. But the words wouldn't come. I was trapped in the silence, the suffocating silence of truth. A silence that held the weight of years of secrets, years of lies, years of carefully constructed illusions. A silence that threatened to swallow us whole. It's been weeks since the incident. Weeks since our perfect little world imploded. The silence has been broken, shattered into a million jagged pieces, replaced by a cacophony of accusations, recriminations, and tears. The family, it's a mess. A fractured, fragmented mess. We're like a vase that's been dropped, shattered into 1,000 pieces, the cracks irreparable. We try to pick up the pieces, to glue them back together, but it's no use. The damage is done. Mama, I don't even know where to begin. She's a ghost of her former self. The elegant, graceful matriarch is gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed woman haunted by the ghosts of her past. She barely speaks, barely eats. She just sits there, staring into space, her hands trembling, her face etched with a mixture of shame and, what? Defiance? Regret? I can't tell. I try to talk to her, to offer some semblance of comfort, but the words feel hollow, meaningless. There's a chasm between us now, a vast, unbridgeable gulf of unspoken truths and shattered illusions. Lucia is furious, cold, controlled fury. She barely acknowledges Mama, her lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. She throws herself into her work, spending long hours at the hospital, escaping into the world of scalpels and sutures, where everything is black and white, right and wrong. She sees Mama's actions as a betrayal, a violation of everything she believed in. And me? I'm caught in the crossfire, the unwilling mediator, trying to bridge the unbridgeable. Miguel is lost. He wanders around the house, like a sleepwalker, his eyes vacant, his usual exuberance extinguished. He's stopped painting, stopped sketching. His art, once his refuge, his escape, now seems to mock him, a stark reminder of the beauty and innocence that's been lost. He keeps asking, why? A simple question with no easy answers, a question that echoes in the hollow spaces of our fractured family. Abuela, poor Abuela, she's aged 10 years in as many weeks. Her frail body seems even smaller, more fragile. She clutches her rosary constantly, her lips moving in silent prayer, her eyes filled with a deep, unyielding sadness. She tries to maintain a semblance of normalcy, to hold the family together, but the weight of the secrets, the weight of the lies, is too much, even for her. And Daniel, he's gone, disappeared, vanished into thin air. He left a note, a short, cryptic message, saying he needed time, space. He said he couldn't stay, not after everything. I can't say I blame him. He was thrust into this mess, an unwitting pawn in Mama's game of deception. He came seeking family, belonging, and instead he found lies, betrayal, and a whole lot of pain. I'm numb, exhausted, empty. I go through the motions, work, eat, sleep, but it's all automatic, like I'm a robot, programmed to function, but devoid of any real feeling. The Valencia sun, once so vibrant, now seems dull, lifeless. The scent of orange blossoms, once so intoxicating, now hangs heavy in the air, a cloying reminder of what we've lost. The whispers have stopped, replaced by open stares, pointed fingers, and hushed conversations. The carefully constructed facade of our perfect family has been ripped away, exposing the raw, messy truth beneath. And I'm left standing in the rubble, picking through the debris, trying to make sense of it all. So here I am, Reddit, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet, because I don't know where else to turn. I'm lost, confused, and riddled with guilt. Was I wrong to refuse to take in Daniel? Was my anger, my resentment, justified? Or did my actions, my refusal, contribute to this explosion? Did I inadvertently push him to reveal the truth, to shatter our family's fragile peace? AITA for refusing to take in my mother's illegitimate son, even though it indirectly